the blood god! Skulls for the skull throne!
A phrase echoed throughout the Warhammer world, and one we will be bringing to life here today in Baldur's Gate 3. Berserker is one of my favorite iterations of anything in any game. Become a blood wild fighter lost to the crimson of combat? Sign me right the hell up. Today we'll be making a fun dual-wielding Barbarian build. Since this build is a little on the flavorful side, we'll be focusing on taking dual-wielding rather than the typical two-handed weapon, which will leave some damage on the table. But we are also taking some fun multi-classing to make this a viable honor mode build for your main character or for Kharlach, however you want to build it out. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by uploading the knowledge of my videos so you can decide if it's the right one for you. So with that being said, we'll be taking 7 levels into Barbarian with Berserker, 3 levels into Rogue for the Thief subclass, and 2 levels into Fighter. This will enable us 2 full primary actions and 2 bonus actions, which we can use for our Enraged Strike, which is exclusive to the Berserker. You can also do 6 levels into Berserker and 3 levels into Fighter for Champion for some real crunchy crits if you'd like as well, though. This is a very straightforward build, and itemization is really just using the items that come your way with some standout ones here and there. So that's really the TLDW of this entire video. If that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down and get back to spilling blood in the name of Khorne. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Each one of those things helps me out in a huge way. I've gone from something like 89% to 80% unsubscribed viewership because of your help, but that's a number I'd still like to get lower, and every little bit helps. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. And if you need help with any other subject in Baldur's Gate 3, check out my playlist linked below and at the end of the video. Let's get started here on the best dual-wielding Berserker Kharlach build in Baldur's Gate 3. Moving into character creation, there's going to be some standout races here, but as always, please choose the ones that are going to make sense for you in your playthrough. It is a single-player narrative game after all. The half-orc always stands out here since we are going to be using melee weapons. This is not a throwing barb build. Savage attacks here. When you land a critical hit with a melee weapon, you deal an extra dice of weapon damage, and this goes really well with the champion fighter subclass if you decided to go with that route with the class split. And also Relentless Endurance keeps the character up after they drop to 0 hit points. They regain 1 instead of just going down, and I just really love it. The half-orc is made to be a barbarian. Human's always great because increased carry capacity and skill proficiency, which isn't too big of a focus here, but it is a nice thing to have. The dwarf is good with the gold dwarf because you are going to get additional hit points. The Dwagar I usually like to really shout out, but I think the big thing you have to keep in mind is when you enrage, you cannot maintain any concentration on any spells, and you cannot cast spells. So enlarge, I don't think it is a, it's a concentration spell. I had to put it up on the other screen. It's a concentration spell, so never mind. The Dwagar is no longer a recommendation for me in this build. It would be good otherwise. I'd just use the Potion of Colossus. All the other ones are just fine. You'll be fine with them. There's nothing that's really going to give you a ton of benefit because we are starting off as a fighter here. And you can go with Astral Knowledge from the Gith, which is cool for proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. So since we're not going to have a ton of charisma, you can get proficiency in charisma skills by clicking this button here. Like, oh, hey, now I have persuasion bonuses because I have proficiency in all that skill, which is really nice, right? So it basically acts like actually having put a skill investment into any charisma skills, which we typically are not going to do as a barbarian. One standout here for the Tiefling is the Zariel Tiefling, which is what Kharlach is. Why I like Tieflings is A, that they get a cool resistance to fire. So they're going to take half damage from the most prevalent damage type in the game, which is fire. And Zariel Tieflings are going to get access to 2 smites, the Branding Smite and the Searing Smite. Now, of course, you can't cast spells, but you are going to have access to a ton of actions and bonus actions. So it's nice that you could actually, before jumping into a rage, use a branding or a searing smite, go into rage, and still be able to do something with your action surge or whatever it is from your fighter characteristics. So you can actually get a lot of really good use from Searing Smite and Branding Smite. The other 2 Tiefling sub-races, you wouldn't be able to use their abilities when you're in rage, so they're not going to be as beneficial here. So go with whatever makes sense for you. Our starting class is actually not going to be a barbarian, though. It's going to be a fighter, though, for the first level. And the big thing here is that this is going to give us a really cool bit of proficiencies here, strength and constitution, of course, but we'll get access to every single type of weapon and armor in the game, and shields if we so wish. Our fighting style, though, is going to be 2-weapon fighting because we are going with this thematic route. When you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the attack. That's going to be a pretty big boon for us. If you do just want to go with the 2-handed weapon variant of this, just go great weapon fighting and you're good to go there. And for your background, of course, go with whatever makes sense for you. Please choose a background that really kind of leans into the roleplay for the character you've created. Are you some sort of outlander from some distant tribe that is a renowned berserker that has come to civilization as a mercenary? Are you a folk hero who has watched their family become slaughtered and become a berserker instead, and you rove the countryside killing people that break the law or whatever it is? Please choose something that makes sense for you and your character and what you're going to be playing in Baldur's Gate 3. Guild Artisan is always my kind of go-to for a min-maxi option because it gives us both insight and persuasion, two great things when it comes to conversations in this game. And in that same note here for our skills, let's go ahead and take a look at this. I think Intimidation's a pretty good one because we are going with Barbarian, and Barbarian does have a lot of really fun dialogue options that are oftentimes linked to Intimidation. So having a bonus here can be cool because we are going to really sack this characteristic. If you are making Kharlach, though, and she's not going to be doing a bunch of talking, you could probably just drop that. But survival and perception are two really great skills here because this allows you to just kind of see these things in the game world and you won't have to worry about failing those as much as you would otherwise. You could also drop that and maybe get athletics here so that you're better at shoving. Just kind of think of this character and what their role is going to be. Is it my primary character that's going to do all the talking? Well, I should probably have one conversation specialization here. Or is this Karlach, who's not going to do any of that, or any other character that I want to make a barbarian? Well, then just go ahead and put those points elsewhere so that you don't have to worry about any of the conversation portions of the game. So when it comes to your stat distribution, here's what we are going to be going with: 17 strength, 14 dexterity, and 16 constitution. This will allow us to get the dexterity bonus and constitution bonus into our armor class. Remember, we are a barbarian, so as long as we're not wearing armor, we get the +5 here. But we are also going with fighter, so as long as we're not wearing heavy armor, we can still benefit from all the things of being a barbarian minus our barbarian unarmored situation. We'll talk about that in just a little bit here. But while we're going with 17 strength, even if you're going with a honor mode build here, is yes, betting on the anti-Ethel's hair is not necessarily a surefire thing, but it is a surefire thing to get the +2 to strength potion in Act 2. And if this is not a spoiler for anyone who's never played, the Mirror of Loss, you can guarantee getting that pass through by simply using the book, The Necromancy of Thay. You can push yourself through that, and you can use that knowledge and give it to the mirror and get your bonus from it. So it can be a little funky going through that whole process because you kind of have to navigate that and what it's going to possibly do to your character if you fail all of them. But you can just kind of use remove curse, so it doesn't really matter, right? If you're a veteran of the good fight, you know how to really navigate that better. But either way, I would still stick with 17 strength because there's a lot of ways to get just one more strength into your character through a lot of other means. So I'd go with this: 17 strength, 14 dexterity, 16 constitution. We put 2 points into wisdom here so that we don't have any issues with any kind of CC or crowd control effects early into the game. Now, I've put 8 charisma, which makes this a little bit wilder for the main character, right? It's a little bit harder to do any kind of conversational things. So if you want, I mean, you can kind of take 1 point away here to just have 16 strength. And if you're more confident that way with 10 charisma, this allows you not to have any penalties on any of the conversational skills like persuasion, intimidation, deception, what have you. So go with what you're comfortable with. There's plenty of ways to navigate this and have a lot of fun. Just remember that every 2 points over 10, you get a bonus to the ability check, right? So strength at 16 gives us a +3. Going up to 17 doesn't get us anything until we get it to 18, right? It's got to be an even number. That'll get us sort of the +4. So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of navigate this, but either 16, 14, 16, 10, 10, or 17, 14, 16, 10 is the best way to go about it, in my opinion. So jumping right into the progression here, At level 2, we're going to go with Barbarian. I think this will be probably the first time in a build video I'll actually recommend respecking halfway through. And it's because we went one level into Fighter to get us the bonus to our armor, not to our armor class, a bonus to our damage from the 2 weapon style. And we're doing that because if you're jumping into honor mode with this, we want to have the advantage of as much damage as we can from this character, since we are kind of quote unquote nerfing them by not taking 2-handed weapons or throwing, whatever it is. So I'm trying to make this work the best I can. So our first actual level up goes right immediately into Barbarian, where we get Rage. Now remember, here with Rage, you're getting 2 extra damage with melee, improvised weapons, and throwing, of course, and you gain resistance to physical damage and advantage on strength checks and saves. But you cannot concentrate or cast spells. And I did not mention this, but the Dragonborn would have been a good option for a race because they get a resistance to a specific element. In D&D, they can use their Dragon Breath attack while enraged. I have not tested it if you can use it in Baldur's Gate 3. So if you've played a Dragonborn Barbarian, go ahead and let me know in the comments below if you can use your breath attack. But that's a really cool way to do a little bit of damage with this kit if you go Dragonborn. And of course, we get unarmored defense. While not wearing armor, you add your Constitution modifier to your armor class. That is good. I mean, and this is going to be super straightforward, man. Like, we're just pressing accept a bunch of times, more or less. At level 2, we're going to get access to Danger Sense. You have advantage on dex saving throws against traps, spells, and surfaces. It's okay, but the big benefit here is you can't be blinded or incapacitated. To gain this benefit, you can't be... Oh, whoops. I was like, wait. As I read that out loud, I was like, that's new. I don't remember them getting an immunity to that. It was saying to gain this benefit, you can't be blinded or incapacitated. So ignore what I just said. I was like, man, that's stupid strong. But we get reckless attack. So until your next turn, you have advantage on attack rolls, but enemies also have advantage against you. So this is kind of a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Using this to really hit a hard target can backfire and hurt you. So just make sure if you're using this, you're not right up against a bunch of enemies and it's in honor mode. And if you get slapped around, it's really going to hurt you. We're just going to keep going forward, using Barbarian things. We're going to choose our subclass, and we're going to go Berserker. Wildheart is a really good Barbarian, and in my opinion, it's my favorite Barbarian because they're so tanky. But we're going Berserker here because we are a Berserker. Now, we get a special type of rage called Frenzy. So we get Frenzied Strike and Enraged Throw, which is awesome, but you gain resistance to physical damage and advantage on strength checks as well. And this is just overall a little bit better of a rage. And that Frenzied Strike here is, as a bonus action, make a melee weapon attack with your equipped weapon. You will cause a stack of Frenzied Strain on the Barbarian. So this is something to keep in mind. Frenzied Strike is kind of like the big thing here, right? Using Frenzied Strike adds a penalty to attack rolls every time, stacking so that you miss more often. This adds up until the end of your frenzy. So this is good because we get basically, we weaponize a bonus action, but this is me telling you now, yeah, you're going to get 2 bonus actions. That doesn't mean they both need to be Frenzied Strike. You don't need to do 6 or 4 or 9 or a million rounds of melee weapon attack damage in a round. Think of this as you have now, once we get into Thief, the ability to use Frenzied Strike as one bonus action, then jump with another bonus action, or use a potion with a bonus action. You can do anything else with that bonus action that allows you a little bit more turn utility and better action economy, because that's how you actually beat honor mode. So we've got that. Let's press accept here, and we can talk about level 4 very quick, which gives us nothing other than a feat. So let's talk about some featsies. So when it comes specifically to this build, we are going to go with dual wielder because this is the only feat we get in the build. You can use 2 weapon fighting even if your weapons aren't light. That's a huge boon. Also, you gain +1 bonus to armor class while wielding a weapon in each hand, and you cannot dual wield heavy weapons. It's just nice here because it's going to be a free AC to us, and we can now use things that don't say light, so that allows us to dual wield long swords. We can use a mace and a long sword, a mace and an axe. You can use any combination of one-handed weapons. So it's an absolute crucial pick for this thematic crunchy build. Another one, if you wanted to stick with your 2-handed weapon, would just simply go with Great Weapon Master. If you didn't care and you like, hey, you know what? I don't need the benefit of dual wielder. Savage Attacker would probably be another route I would take, and I really wish I could squeeze it into this build. And you can, right? You just sacrifice levels of one thing or the other. And I've kind of gone this route deliberately because I wanted all the benefits of dual wielding, because that's the kind of theme of the build overall. So dual wielder is what we're going to go with. Ability improvement, of course, is always really good. And you can also go with athlete here just to get a point into strength if you wanted to kind of get you jump distance increase. And when you're prone, setting up uses significantly less movement. But again, we are going dual wielder as our sole feat for this build. Jumping back forward into this, we're going to now get level 5 with Barbarian, which gives us our extra attack and also fast movement. The nice thing about fast movement, unlike maybe the monk's movement stuff, hinges upon them not actually having any kind of armor on. For the Barbarian, it's just they cannot wear heavy armor, which would prevent them from raging anyway. So it's nice here. You can still wear light or medium armor with this build without a problem, and we get that extra attack. Now, you could have gone just 5 levels into Barbarian and 1 into Fighter, but I wanted to maximize our damage as much as we could. And probably the real gamey way to do this would be to take, as soon as you get that previous level, respec entirely and just go 5 levels into Barbarian, so you're not spending a whole level without extra attack. It's probably the best way to approach this. But I think that you still have the fact that you can do a bonus action attack and a primary action attack as a Berserker. I don't think you're going to be too far behind the power curve, just simply waiting 1 more level. And at this point, at level 6-ish or so, 5 or 6, you're just about kind of clearing out Act 1 before you jump into Act 2. So make sure you kind of mop up as many quests as you can to make sure you maximize those levels before progressing to the harder portions of the game. And here to level 6 with Barbarian, where you can stop if you wish and go into Rogue, but we're going to get Mindless Rage. And this is a big one, and why 6 I think is the big stopping point for them if we didn't go further. While frenzied, you can't be charmed or frightened, and calm emotions no longer ends your rage. The first 2 of this are really important because you just don't want to lose control of your character through charm or frightened. The only thing, of course, to deal with then is hold person, which you will probably deal with quite a bit. But having those 2 shut off for you is a really great situation. And lastly, we're going to get 1 more level here into Barbarian, which grants us Feral Instinct. It's the reason I'm taking Barbarian to 7, because this basically gives us a free diet version of Alert. Alert is a +5 bonus to initiative, and you can't be surprised. This is just simply a +3. So it's a really great just free feature added in. And the nice thing too is, since we've taken an extra level of Barbarian, we've scaled with the Barbarian hit points per level. So this gives us actually more hit points had we gone a different route. And at this point, we're going to accept. And now we're going to branch out. So we can branch out here back into Fighter and just get Action Surge online. That's probably the easiest way to just kind of do things. The other route here, though, is jumping into Rogue and getting access to some fun things through this concoction. The nice thing too is this does give us sneak attack, and we can use sneak attack as long as we have advantage on the target and we're within 5 feet of a bro. So as long as you don't have disadvantage, you can still do this. So it can actually be a pretty fun way to add a little spicy damage into this build, but it's not really the primary focus here. I'm just going to go ahead and take Rogue now so we can push through and get these bonus actions online to have a little bit more fun with us. Also too, we do get the ability to give Cunning Action Dash. So remember, we have all these bonus actions, right? So if we're super far away from someone, we can use Cunning Action Dash, sprint up to them, and then still have an additional bonus action for our Enraged Strike, and that action, our primary action, can still do all the damage it needs to. It's a really great way to do things. Here we go. Go ahead and take that Thief subclass. It's going to give us that additional Fast Hands bonus action. We also get this. You know, you've mastered the art of falling and gain resistance to falling damage, but that's not what we're going to choose. So we simply just accept that. And our last level here goes into Fighter. And this gives us Action Surge. Now, of course, like I said, you can simply take 6 levels into Barbarian and jump 2 more levels into Fighter, in which case you would take Champion. Champion gets the passive ability to make it so you don't critical hit on a 20 anymore. You critical hit on a 19 and a 20 with your weapon attacks. So if you want to take that route, you definitely can. You just miss out on the Barbarian. You basically miss out on 2 hit points, and you miss out on the Barbarian Feral Instinct, which is that +3 to initiative and can't be surprised. So this is our character. Let's jump into some gear and what this all looks like put together. So putting this all together, let me talk very quickly about sneak attack and in reckless attack, and how all this can kind of click in, because sneak attack says you have to you deal damage to a foe you have advantage against, right? And I brought this up very quickly when we're going through the progression, but I do want to focus on this little bit, and it's perfect that this is highlighted. Must be wielding a finesse weapon in main hand, not offhand. So if you want to use sneak attack and build it into the character, just remember you have to have a finesse weapon. And finesse doesn't mean you have to have dex. It means it can use dex rather than strength. So this whole build can be built around dexterity if you want. It's entirely a viable option. I just want you to know, though, you can use sneak attack, and it can get the advantage from a reckless attack to then trigger. But just know that sneak attack will only happen once a turn. And again, it needs to have a finesse weapon equipped. But outside of that, we have our reckless attack. We have our frenzy that we can turn on, just kind of go fisticuffs with things. We have our frenzied strike, that is a bonus action. And we have our second wind, which is a bonus action. So remember, like I said, that's just another thing we can do with our bonus actions. And we have action surge, which is just going to straight up grant us another action. And the nice thing is it recovers on a short rest. That's one of the best things about this ability. Let's just click this bonus action button, just to give you an idea of what we can do here. We have the ability just to jump. We can do our shoving here. And I think there's a specific ring that gives you an AC when you shove something, which is pretty fun. You can pommel strike something. It depends on what weapon you have equipped, right? In this case, we have got a two-handed weapon, which we won't have in just a little bit. But you have these dashes you can do because of our cunning actions. There's all the potions we can use. If you have special boots like the ones I'm wearing, you can use brutal leap. So there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with bonus actions, and this gives us so much viability to just kind of do a lot in one turn and not feel so relegated to smash things face in, only do damage, only do melee, whatever it is. You can have a lot of fun through a lot of different items. Now let's go into some items. So when it comes to items, let me first talk about the items I unfortunately don't have on my character. And the first one is the Defender Flail. Now this is a really good one. You're going to get access to this in the Creche in the Mountain Pass. Reduce incoming bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage by 1. Armor class +1. And it has tenacity. The cool thing about the Steel Physiology is that it is going to work here outside, or in addition to the already defensive benefits of Enrage. So this adds on top of it. This is a really good early defensive one that you can use. You do have to have the dual wielder feat to use this in an offhand, right? But you can have this in your primary, and it's a real great weapon to start the game out and gives you a lot of really good defensive characteristics. And in the same location, you can get the Knife of the Undermountain King. The wielder scores a critical hit when rolling a 19. This is an old version of it, but basically it's saying that it just reduces it by 1. When they roll 2 damage or less, reroll the dice, taking the highest result. And then Shadow Blade, you have advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavily obscured targets when using this blade. And it's a +2. So you get this really early in the game. You can use it in your offhand, and you can stay there almost the entirety of the game. Jumping into Act 3, though, or I'm sorry, finishing off Act 1, we have the Blood of Lathander. It's going to be a really good mace. It's also going to bring you into Act 2, and it's really going to be awesome in Act 2. It's also going to keep you up, right? Once per long rest, when your hit points are reduced to 0, you instead regain 2 to 12 hit points. Allies within 9 meters also regain 1 to 6. So a nice little free heal. You get Lathander's Light that illuminates things within 6 meters. And in combat, fiends and undead standing in the light are blinded unless they succeed a Constitution saving throw. I said that so fast. Unless they succeed a Constitution saving throw, which is going to be a huge part of Act 2 and into the beginning portions of Act 3. Weapon enchantment +3, which is awesome. And you get a free cast of Sunbeam once a day. It's a really, really good weapon that's going to carry you through Act 2. Now into Act 3, we have 2 big items that I, again, don't have. One being Bloodthirst, which you're going to get from Orin. The number you need to roll a crit hit is reduced by 1 again. And main hand only, exploit weakness. Creatures hit with this weapon receive vulnerability to piercing damage. So you can instead put this in your offhand, which gives you True Strike Riposte. When a creature misses you with a melee attack, you may retaliate and gain True Strike. What's cool about this is that True Strike is a primary action. I think it's actually an action and a bonus action, but either way, it's an action spell. So it is not always fun to cast. And the nice thing is if you put it in your offhand, you just have this thing auto cast for you as a reaction. That's pretty sweet. That's a great way to get that online for you. And you get, of course, that improved critical, which is great. And the last weapon you're going to get from Kazdor, is the Rhapsody. Now this is a dagger, again, gaining +1 bonus to attack rolls, damage, and spell save DC for every foe you slay up to a max of +3. So getting just a free +3 bonus to my attack rolls and my damage is sick. And sweet bloodletting, possibly inflict bleeding when hitting a creature with this weapon while hiding or invisible. We're not going to be doing the latter, so that's not as awesome, but having that free damage bonus is really, really cool. So we can use this in our offhand with something else in our primary. Now on that note though, let me go through the items I do have. And that list is long. So let's go through this. We'll start with our weapons, of course, first, and we'll go through those. And there's a lot to really choose from with this character. Pretty much as you're leveling up, choose any single-handed weapon that you really like and go with it. Until you get the dual wielder feat, you will be relegated to using light weapons, but you can eventually get into versatile longswords, like the Sword of the Emperor here in Act 3. This weapon deals an additional 1d4 against shapeshifted or polymorphed creatures, which you will deal with in that act, but the wielder has a +2 bonus to saving throws against spells, giving you a little bit more defensive characteristics. Blade of Oppressed Souls is something you're going to get at the end of Act 2 in the basement of the Moonrise Towers, but it just gives you free psychic damage, so it's a cool source of psychic damage. And it has this ability here, Crowning Strike. Unleash the wail of the dead that fell to your blade and possibly instill Crown of Madness in the target. It does thunder and additional psychic damage equal to your proficiency bonus. So you just get your free proficiency bonus of psychic damage into the target. So it's a nice way to kind of drop a big bomb of an attack, and it replenishes on a short rest. So you can use this in conjunction with your action surge to then replenish both on a short rest, which is really, really cool. Most of the abilities that items have attached to them are on short rest, most of them. Now, in addition to that too, we have Falar Luve, which you'll just get in Act 1, the very beginning of the game, in the Underdark. It's a longsword, it's finesse, it's versatile, it's really, really good, and it gives you this really good melody, which either can sing to buff things or shriek to debuff things, and also have them take thunder damage, I believe it is. Yeah, 1 to 4 thunder damage extra in damage when they get hit. It's a really awesome weapon. You'll probably use the majority of your game. Into Act 3 too, we also have the Handmaiden's Mace, which is just going to set your strength to 18. So if you did take more of a dexterity-based character, you can get this weapon, and it just gives you a free 18 strength on top of whatever your dex is at. So this is a really cool way to kind of spice into both directions if you want. Another cool weapon here is the Twist of Fortune. I really like any kind of mace in this game because usually it has tenacity attached to it. Well, the Morningstar does. The non-versatile ones do as well. Like we took a look at the flail, right? The flail has it, or there's the other flail that adds elemental damage, which I actually don't have on me, but that you'll find that in Act 3 as well. You just choose an element and it does that element's damage. But tenacity is nice because when you miss an attack, you deal a set amount of damage anyway. And I think it's 2 plus your proficiency bonus. I'm not sure, but in this case, it just says 6. But just read whatever the tooltip says. When you roll 2 or less with the weapon's damage die, re-roll it and take the new result. So this just gives you a lot of really consistent damage, and you have blood money here. Strike out grittily, dealing an additional 4 piercing damage per 300 gold that the target possesses. The gold will be consumed. So just be careful when it comes to that. You don't want to use that really. You get this in Act 2 from the Tollkeeper. And also in Act 2 is Kethric's Warhammer, which is just a nice Warhammer that just gives you 1d4 psychic damage. Just a cool one to have. The Sword of Life Stealing you're going to get in the beginning of Act 2, you get this from the Quartermaster. On a critical hit, the target takes an extra 10 necrotic damage as long as it isn't a construct or an undead. You also gain 10 temp hit points. It's a really good sword that will last you throughout that whole act before you jump into items that'll give you a lot of other really good temp hit points. And also, just one that's really good that you get from the Goblin camp is the Faithbreaker. It's a simple +1 Warhammer, but what I really like about it is just the massive damage you get from absolute power, because it does thunder damage and force damage, 2 of the least resisted damage types in the game, and it pushes targets back. Really, really like this. It's one of my favorite early weapons to get, and you can just simply use this in your main hand with a dagger or a short sword in your offhand and be pretty good up until the point that you get maybe the dagger of the Undermountain King or whatever it is. It's just a really good high damage weapon that you can get very early in your playthrough. But Also, we have two other really good ones I like. The Near Luna. This is the throwing spear that people would typically use, but you can also just simply use this in one hand because it is a versatile trident. Another weapon too that I didn't even think to showcase is the Saluna Spear of Night here. You gain advantage on wisdom saving throws and perception checks, which is whatever, but it gives you a cast of moonbeam, which is nice, but you can't use that while in rage. Keep that in mind. And it does give you moon mote, which is not as crazy, but it does quite a good bit of damage here. There's the evil version of this that I don't know how good it is, if it is any good, but that does exist. This weapon, though, back to this weapon will return to your hand when thrown, which is cool, but when thrown, the weapon creates an explosion that deals 3 to 12 thunder damage. So in a pinch, you can actually use your enraged throw here to just have this do thunder damage and a 20-foot blast for you. That's always really nice. And that will also knock things prone because it's an enraged throw, dealing additional damage and knocking it prone. Where's this? Okay. You also gain a 10-foot bonus to movement speed and jump distance. Equipping this weapon gives you immunity to falling damage. This object shines with light. It's a +3. It gives you 2 other really awesome capabilities in Zephyr Flash, which is a thunder charge, basically, creating an air vortex that blasts foes and possibly inflicts bleeding for 3 turns, and Zephyr Break, which you just shoot a big old gust of wind and possibly knock them off balance. Both replenishable on a short rest. Just to kind of show you, you'd press this button, and I would do damage in that line, or I press this button, and it's this big old line of a Zephyr Break. So there's a lot of really fun, a lot of fun you can have with just simply that weapon. Another really good one is one from Baldur's Gate 2 is Belm. It's great because it's a really cool, just simple damage weapon +2. It has a whirlwind attack built into it, making separate attack rolls for each time it hits, which is really cool, and you get perfectly balanced strike. So you can actually use this bonus action rather than your typical bonus action. And what I mean by that is, let me show you. So here's my typical bonus action attack with Belm, 9 to 14. You have to click this little button right here to have your character use, when you go to attack, it'll use both your primary weapon and their bonus weapon if this button is set like that. If it's just set with just one sword, then they're only going to use their primary attack. And I recommend you always set the character up to just simply use main hand attacks, and you choose how the offhand attack works, no matter what weapon you have equipped. But especially with this one, because like I said, here's the offhand attack of Belm natively, 9 to 14, but Belm's special is this one, perfectly balanced. So you can see this is 11 to 21 versus 9 to 14. So definitely go with this because it's just going to get so much more additional benefits here. It does a lot more damage, and you can use this per turn. It's not on any kind of short rest or anything like that. So you can get a lot of really cool benefit. You could even use this and then this if you want. It's entirely up to you. Or use Enrage or use Frenzied Strike and then use Perfectly Balanced Strike. Whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. You've got plenty of ways to break that up. It really fits well into this build. Now, outside of that, when it comes to gear, really, you have a really set path of non-armor barbarian gear throughout the game. Just use it. You'll see it. It says, hey, he's got 0 armor. It does not count as a medium or a light armor. Just go ahead and use that. I'm going to show you some standout ones, but stuff like the Mighty Cloth that you'll get in Act 2 is really good. You gain Bull Strength, which is awesome here. Bull Strength is going to give you advantage on strength checks, and your carry capacity is doubled and increases your strength score by 2 to a max of 20. So why this is important is that if you get something that brings your strength up from 17, this brings it to 20. But if your character already has, like, say 19 strength or even 20 strength, this will not give them any benefit. So just keep that in mind. It's really good early, falls off in the later game. Unwavering Bull, you cannot be pushed against your will, and you have advantage on saving throws against being restrained, and you get a free charge built into this through a class action lawsuit, which is really nice. You just simply bull rush things, only available when you're raging though. And another really good one is Adamantine Scale Mail. You don't need to wear no armor. You can wear armor with this build. There's no problem with it. In fact, a lot of times you can actually outpace the benefit of the armor class from your dexterity and your constitution. Just simply play the way you want. Choose the item pieces that are going to fit into the character the way you want to do them. And I wanted to give you some armor and non-armor ways of approaching this character so that you can really kind of do what makes sense for you. The best one is going to be eventually Bone Spike Garb, because this just gives you free 15 hit points whenever you enrage, reduces all incoming damage by 2, and when something hits you, the attacker is going to take 6 piercing damage. So it's just free damage. you get free hit points and it reduces damage. It's a really great ability here. Really good armor piece, I mean. When it comes to gloves, you have a ton of options. You can stick with low strength and use elixirs of cloud strength or cloud giant strength or hill giant strength. You can go that whole route. I don't like really talking about it because I think that it can be very overwhelming for new people coming to the game. And if you are also playing honor mode and you don't want to go through the gamey portion of creating herbalists and all this other thing, I just wanted it to kind of be something a little bit more on the rails. So you can go those routes. That does open up your glove slot a little bit more, but here's some ones that kind of stand out. Initially, you're going to get the Bracers of Defense in Act 2, I believe. You gain +2 bonus to armor class as long as you are not wearing armor or holding a shield. So that would put our AC right now up to 23, which is pretty sweet. Legacy of the Masters is medium armor. Gain +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls with weapons. Always nice if you're taking the armor route. Another set of medium armor is the Gauntlets of Surging Accuracy. When you use Action Surge, gain 1d4 bonus to attack rolls for the rest of your turn. So the way you would use these is, if you had these equipped, you'd use Action Surge at the beginning of your turn, and then you have 1d4 bonus to all of your attack rolls the rest of your turn. In Act 2, if you turn in enough of the Infernal Iron, you'll get the Flawed Helldust Gloves, which are not armor pieces, which is nice, right? This does not count as armor. Your weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 4 fire damage. That's great. The unarmed portion of it doesn't matter, but we just want the 1 to 4 fire, just free passive fire damage. But like I said, I mean, you can pretty much stick with these the entire game if you want. You can get the Bone Spike gloves in the sewers, which I don't have on my character yet. Really just use whatever you want. You're just going to come across so much stuff for this build that you can just use whatever you're comfortable with. Ultimately, you could land on the Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength because they just set your strength to 23 if you want to take that route. Remember, we don't have a ton of feats to pull from, and this is a really easy way to go about it. I just will say that getting this does require you to do the House of Hope, and in honor mode, that can be pretty scary. So keep that in mind. When it comes to helmets, we have the Horns of the Berserker. Gain +2 bonus to attack rolls when attacking creatures that have already taken damage, and unarmed and melee attacks will deal an extra 2 necrotic damage as long as you don't have your full health. If you didn't do any damage this turn, you take 1 to 4 necrotic. I mean, that is neither here nor there. You can pretty much use whatever headpieces you want. If you want to go armor route, use armor headpieces, but you're not going to find a ton of really good ones until the later acts of the game anyway. Also, in the you don't have to go to House of Hope for this, but you have to kind of start your way into it, is the Mask of Soul Perception. This just gives you a +2 bonus to attack rolls, initiative rolls, and perception checks. The first 2 on this list being better than the latter. So this is a nice way to just kind of increase your attack and initiative rolls. You can also, if you do that, the House of Hope, get the Helldust Helmet. You can see in magical and ordinary darkness, so you can't be blinded, which is really awesome. And the wielder has a +2 bonus to saving throws against spells, and you can't be crit hit. The class action of Immolating Gaze will work when you are enraged. Class actions are not spells, so keep that in mind. You can do this when you're enraged, which is pretty fun. Outside of that too, we have a back piece, Flesh Melter's Cloak. Whenever you take damage, you deal 1 to 4 acid, or just simply Cloak of Protection. Armor class +1, saving throw +1. Those are probably your 2 better bets, and you get them both very early in the game, so you can be pretty happy with both of those. As far as your boots go, just go with any kind of mobility boots. Really good early ones are Disintegrating Nightwalkers. You won't be able to use the Misty Step if you're enraged, but the Can't be enwebbed, entangled, and snared is very nice because you also can't slip on grease or ice. But eventually, too, you can get Linebreaker boots. I almost said linebacker. Linebreaker boots once per turn when you dash, which you'll be able to dash as a bonus action, right? You gain Wrath for 2 turns, and Wrath increases damage with melee weapons by 1 for each turn remaining. So you can cast this and get a +2 bonus to your damage, which is really cool. So anything that causes Wrath can be useful in this build for a little bit longer than other builds, I'd say. But I'd say that probably the best ones to fall on are the Bone Spike boots. You have a +1 bonus to armor class and saving throw as long as you're not wearing armor or holding a shield. So if you take the no armor route, this is the best way. Refined Vaulting, jump distance increased by 5, and you get Brutal Leap, which is cool because it knocks things prone. So you leap into them, knock them prone, then do your primary sources of damage. And since we have extra bonus actions, we don't need to worry about this exhausting anything. For our necklace, the go-to is the Amulet of Greater Health. Before that, you get the Perioptive Wound Closure in what the hell is it called? In the Mountain Pass, which would make it so that anytime you get healed, you get the max amount of healing from any source, which is really cool. But this is probably the best one. Don't I have something else in here? Yeah, there's this one too. Face Semblance Amulet. You have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, which you natively are terrible at. So this helps you to kind of maintain control of your character a little bit longer, but you get this in Act 3, unfortunately. As far as our other jewelry goes, though, you've got the Spurred Band. During combat, when the wearer starts their turn with 50% hit points or less, they gain momentum, so it gives them a little bit more movement. But simply stuff like the Ring of Free Action is really good. You ignore the effects of difficult terrain and cannot be paralyzed or restrained. I love that. Or the Crusher's Ring. You just simply move an extra 10 feet. It's a really strong ring right there. Or you can go with the Killer's Sweetheart, which guarantees critical hits, or even to the Ring of Regeneration for some extra healing, whatever kind of makes sense for the character you have in mind and the setup you're going with. And lastly, the last little thing to talk about here, I think, right, as I look across the board, is the Drakefire Shortbow, which you'll get in Act 2 from Daemon if you did not kill him at the Emerald Grove. And this just gives you resistance to fire and cold. If you're putting this on Kharlach, she already has resistance to fire, but this is nice to just give you access to resistance to cold, and it gives you a free cast of haste that you would that you will break. I forgot that this is going to be a concentration ability. So you will gain haste for 10 turns, armor class, and become faster, but it's concentration. So when you jump into Enrage, you will end this ability. So keep that in mind. This will target yourself or an ally, though. So you can cast this on someone else. Just do it all before you go into a rage. So let's put this all together and show it what it looks like in combat. All right, now jumping into combat, let's have some fun. Look, it's pretty spicy with this. Just to kind of show you what we've done, we've gone ahead and taken one of those soul coins just to make this look really damn cool, right? Her weapons and armor attacks deal additional 1 to 4 damage when she is raging, or when she is when her hit points drop below 25%. And I have an elixir of bloodlust. I've also taken a potion of speed. So those things are active right now, and it's going to kind of change the overall presentation of what this character can do in a fight, but I also want to kind of show some min-maxy kind of stuff. So let's have some fun. Let's frenzy first. And we are now in our special mode. And as you can see, we can still do stuff like our Zephyr Flash or our Zephyr Break from our weapon. So I can just open up and just knocking these things all around as part of just one of our simple actions. And since we've already done one of our bonus actions here, we can go ahead and do Frenzied Strike, or we can go ahead and do Perfectly Balanced Strike and not worry about taking our Frenzied Strike stuff into consideration. So let's go over here and let's just do like one actual melee attack, right? You know, we'll even use Reckless Attack. This is only going to use our primary, so I just went ahead and did 13, 4, 1. We can do it again. And we can do a bonus attack. There we go. Or we can go ahead and use Zephyr Flash and come over here and launch all of them. And we killed someone. So now we have a whole extra action. And this is not honor mode. Honor mode typically wouldn't give you a bunch of extra stuff attached with this ability, but we're gonna have fun with it regardless. Just show off some stuff. And hey, you know what? Action Surge. And she's got 1 hit point. Let's just finish her off. And then come over here. So in total, what we were able to do here was 15, 6, 3. So what? 24 damage, a little bit less than that, or maybe actually just about a little bit more. Pretty much about every swing around 24 damage, right? And that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our Zephyr Flash, so let's consider that 5. 6 for our perfectly balanced bonus attack. 7, 8. We did a total of 8 hits in this whole entire turn. Now, you're not going to always have Bloodlust up, and you're not always going to have Action Surge up, so you can maybe reduce 4 of those, right? So that's 4 you've got a lot of damage you can actually dish out. And I deliberately kind of set this up so we were just kind of spacing these attacks out. I could have just been focusing one on a single target and doing a ton of things. And I don't have all the really cool items that you maybe can jump into with the Rhapsody or the Bloodthirst and really ramp up your crit strike damage so that you're critting way more often. You've just got all these really fun, really cool, crunchy ways to do a ton of damage. And on top of that too, here, I'm going to go ahead and end turn. This character's in the middle of a lot of stuff, so maybe they'll take damage, maybe they won't. Okay, they won't. No, I'm just going to let them take it. They're 4 damage there. She has 152 hit points. So she is innately very tanky because of that. And there's tons of ways that you can really manipulate this, right? Like, I didn't go with the Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength, which I could have gone right there, and I would have been doing even more damage with all of my stuff. So you can see that this build in and of itself has a lot of really cool and fun ways to do damage. And it has a lot of fun ways to use their actions that are not strictly damage related. And let me show you that once we get it back around to my character's turn, and that we can actually simply go, hey, you know what? We're in kind of a pretty spicy spot over here. Why don't we use one of our cool jump actions or whatever it is to maneuver around? Or there's someone who's really far away from us. How do we close that distance as fast as we can? Let's take a look at that here. We'll wait till this piercing shot goes off. I just want all this stuff to kind of go off for whatever reason. Don't, oh, thank God. Don't ruin my video, dude. So, you know what? This guy's all the way over here. We could go ahead and jump. Or we could use our Brutal Leap. Yeah, it's going to provoke some opportunity attacks. That's fine. They unfortunately saved against that, but then we could do a Frenzied Strike on this character. And boom, we've hit them there. We can then do even more of these and hit them there. And do it again. And they're dead. And we have more to do. Oh, my character's like locked in like that weird animation bug lock where it takes a second for things to click in. There we go. Ah, of course it's a miss. Ruined the whole video. Restarting it. And we still have more actions here. So we'll go ahead and use Piercing Strike, because why not? Just to show off more stuff that we can do. And we'll do it again. So we're just really ramping all the fun stuff that we can do on the character and spreading it around. You're a Berserker. You're jumping from place to place. You're doing all this attacks and all this damage, and you get to have a lot of fun with it. So hopefully this gives you a really cool way to use a dual-wielding character in your next playthrough. Or maybe you didn't want to stick with the typical throwing Barbarian. You don't even need to dual wield. You can just simply jump into Great Weapon Mastery or 2-weapon fighting and take that route to give plenty of advantages. There's a lot of different ways you can approach this. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below if there's different ways you do this. Or maybe you said, hey, you know what? You showcase this item, but I think this item would be a way better thing to use in that case. Whatever it is, go ahead and let it be known below. I'm always down for as much information to be disseminated out as possible. But guys, thank you so much for watching here today. I do have a build in mind for a kind of honor mode Death Knight. I have a Death Knight right now, but it relies on the 5 levels of Pact Blade with Warlock, which does not work in honor mode. So if you want to see that, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. I have another video in mind where I just kind of walk you through how to maximize your actions and bonus actions in combat. So again, just let me know if you want to see any of those types of videos. We probably have about 1 or 2 more weeks of Baldur's Gate content left until all the new games come out and people want to play those and don't want to play Baldur's Gate anymore. So I'm trying to get in as much stuff as I can in the meantime. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one and take care.